You boys know what's about to happen to you. You leave now.
Some consider these traits to be toxic, such as undesirable in the men of today. We consider these traits such as these not only to be desirable, but to be appreciated and celebrated. Welcome to the Toxic Male Appreciation Show, hosted by and La Reina Creole. Welcome to the safe space for the toxic male.
Hello everyone, and welcome to my Twitch channel. I'm Lorena Creole, and I've got my wing woman here of positive fandom, and this is the Toxic Male Appreciation Show, where we just appreciate all those traditional male values that progressive Hollywood calls toxic. Yeah.
Yes, agreed. And certainly, Lorena, your choice of topic, the man who we're featuring tonight, is the antithesis of this character that we love so much in Hollywood.
Yes, absolutely. And that would be, unfortunately, the late Ray Liotta. Now, I first saw him in Goodfellas.
Yes.
That movie, it's, I think Scorsese
Yes.
directed Goodfellas. It was like I didn't watch Scarface because I was like that's Florida. I get that news all the time. That's nothing, nothing new, to me. But Goodfellas, that film, it's hard to describe. It's like it's a gangster film, but not well, I'll say gangster film, but differently. And how you see Ray Liotta's character, I think, was it Raymond Hill? I think so. But you see like his journey, becoming how he becomes a part of this crime family, and how, he makes friends, makes enemies, his infamous run-in with like Joe Pesci's character. And it was just I was riveted with that film Goodfellas. That was one where I can sit and I can watch that repeatedly. And there's so many great performances in there, but Ray Liotta's is the ones that stands out to me.
Yeah, Lorena, this is definitely one of the best films he's ever made. Of course, Goodfellas is as you mentioned, how you would describe it, so many different ways because so much happens in this film. And of course, you and I kind of smiled about it because Samuel L. Jackson is also in this film. It takes place in Queens, the events, not too far from where I grew up, which is near JFK Airport. At least some of what was going on near JFK Airport. That diner there behind him, and I don't know whether the diner we see in the TV is the same location spot, but the idea is that there was a diner or some kind of eating place right near the airport where they were running operations, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of things went down, but to be honest with you, this might have been one of the strongest films about organized crime since The Godfather. It was incredibly popular.
Agreed.
We got Bobby De Niro in there, certainly looking incredibly dapper, maybe at not the height of his career, but he was just pushing through, where people would go and see films with him in it. And Ray Liotta kind of plays this very interesting character because he ends up in the family, or so to speak, or part of the organization. And in the end, if I'm correct, he and his wife kind of run for their lives at some point. But it's so beautifully done. It's one of the best films I've ever seen. And I just love his performance in this, along with the chemistry that he had with the rest of the cast. Was just absolutely phenomenal. He's known for, this is like one of the films he's really known for. I do watch the scenes that he's in. He's an attractive guy. So is Robert De Niro in this. It's so much fun to watch the chemistry that they have and all the different things that go on. Now, of course, things kind of go in one direction, and then of course they go south after a while, but you know, because it does deal with organized crime. But boy, what a performance Ray Liotta does in this film. And it's unforgettable. Everybody remembers Goodfellas. There isn't anybody on earth who doesn't know this film and know this performance by Ray Liotta. So it certainly is an accomplishment when you make a film and it has that amount of impact on sort of, you know, cinematic culture, if you will, of films like this. It's right up there for me with The Godfather.
Absolutely, absolutely, because The Godfather was one, first of all, it's classic. It's absolutely classic. Just the way, you know, that it's, you know, that it's shot, the way that the story unfolds. Godfather 1, Godfather 2. I do not acknowledge the third one. I never will. Uh, but just how the story evolves. When Godfather 2, I tell people it's like the way that The Godfather 2 evolved is right up there with like The Empire Strikes Back. If you compare A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, put that in parallel to The Godfather and The Godfather 2, it's just some crazy amount of storytelling. And this was, I guess, for those of us who we were really, really young when The Godfather came out. So for us, it's like, yeah, we know about The Godfather, but Goodfellas is the one where we can quote, you know, lines from repeatedly because, you know, again, like we were saying, Ray Liotta makes this movie. Like it was cool seeing Joe Pesci, and of course, always cool seeing Robert De Niro, but Henry Hill as this guy that he portrayed who's like half Italian and he's half Irish because he was just like he couldn't be either he couldn't be made, I forget, he couldn't be made or he couldn't be a proper member of the family because they need to be able to trace your roots all the way back to the old country. And since his father was Irish, they couldn't do that.
Yeah, it there definitely was kind of a I guess you would say if it's what is it, like there's this ancestry thing going on.
Yes, yes.
A heritage rule, which I have no idea whether it's a thing anymore.
Yeah, I
Um,
didn't know either.
it is fascinating, you know, the notion that there are these rules in place for something that they're doing, which is kind of ruthless in a will, but in a way. But he just does such a beautiful performance here, and you know, at the end, you're kind of scared for him, despite everything that's happened and that this character's been involved in. You know, where he's kind of looking over his shoulder now, and things
Hmm.
kind of turned into a different type of experience. It's no longer fun to be involved in this anymore. Now he's kind of running for his life, and I'll never forget that. It was almost like an anti-crime movie for me. Just seeing his reaction, what he had to go through in the story, and also the him dealing with Pesci, with the Joe Pesci character as well.
Oh yeah, that dynamic between his character and Joe Pesci's character was like classic. I mean, it was just because you see how strong, first of all, how strong of an actor Joe Pesci is, and the fact that Ray Liotta could not only hold his own with Joe Pesci, but flesh out, you know, just how good of an actor he was with, you know, Joe Pesci. So he really wasn't overshadowed by him. It was perfect.
It really was, and it has great rewatchability. People watch it over and over again. I love
Hmm.
seeing them. You know, it's set in the '80s, so I love that era, and it's just so beautifully done. Certainly, you know, a lot of kudos to even the fashion department, and seeing these men, you know, and their outfits, which did ring true to, let's say, just some people I've seen around in certain neighborhoods in New York that I will not say.
And Philly, but I will not say either.
Okay. That's right. So, some neighborhoods where if you park your car and it's like, oh, you didn't lock your car. It's like, don't worry, no one's going to break into it here. Oh, okay.
Like, all right.
Yeah. So,
Wow, that's so 80s. I'm looking at I'm
yeah.
looking at the Puma sneakers.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it really was amazing. They had this location, I guess, near or out of the airport. I can't remember all the details. It's been a little while since I've watched this film. But of course, there has been a lot of interest in it, of course, since Ray Liotta unfortunately passed away fairly recently, Lorena, at the early age of 67, right?
Yes, unfortunately, when he was in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, it's very shocking. That's way too young to pass away, and I'm sure, that was no one should go at that age. It's just way too early. But I think that Martin Scorsese's idea of, going ahead and trying to make this character come alive, it just was amazing how he was able to do it. Lorraine Bracco plays his wife in
Yes,
the movie, and
she
her
was
role,
fabulous.
she really is. I just think it was just such a wonderful portrayal. And of course, the actual time period that the movie is supposed to cover is something like 1955 to 1980. So it's
Mhm.
actually a few decades, but the 80s pops out to me at a certain point with how they look, and it just really was so amazing what they did. Apparently, there was a lot of improvisation, and they had freedom from the director to do what they wanted, and you could kind of tell it did feel a bit chummy, so to speak, and that kind of added to the authenticity, because it wasn't like, well, hello Robert, hello John, like, it didn't feel that way. There was a lot of, it felt like there were a lot of colloquialisms in it, a lot of idiomatic expressions, and just a lot of cultural things that were just wonderful to watch as you were watching the film. And I think a lot of that, of the appeal, the actors being able to have that freedom, certainly did make a difference in the production.
Yeah, they were just like, "No, who's this guy?" And they're just talking just the way that you would hear certain people talk smack to each other all the time. Even this one of the scenes that sticks out to me is the one where they're putting the body in the trunk.
Yes, of course. Of course. Yeah, that certainly was something that you can't ever forget, that scene. Um,
No.
and I think maybe because of that scene, it might be on the top, I don't know, 1,000 movies list, just for that scene alone, where it's like, oh my God, what have you done? He's in your trunk. Like, and then of course trying to control the person in the trunk. And I'm not going to get into the details of what he does, but let's just say he kind of tries to subdue to him doing something. And it is kind of, what's the word? Shocking.
Very.
Yeah, it really was out there, and he lived on the edge. He lived on the edge here, and I think they thought they could mold him to do whatever they wanted. And I think that character, I think after a while he wasn't satisfied with that. The film pretty much is culturally significant, as for according to the National Film Registry.
Mhm.
And let's just be honest, Lorena, a lot of other films have tried to copy this look and feel that Goodfellas had, especially for the
Yes.
1980s era of let's say organized crime, or let's say allegedly organized crime films. They've tried to copy that era from Goodfellas, and why not?
Mhm.
Because it's practically perfect.
Also, if I remember correctly, um, during that time, you started hearing about a lot of different crime bosses. So
Yeah.
that was something that you would literally, you would hear about in the news. I mean, like, I know in Philly we had like the Bruno crime family, and by the time good, because you would hear about these families, like, well,
Yeah.
about the Gottis, but
Yeah.
in New York, but in Philly,
Yes.
you had the Brunos, you had a couple of other ones that were around, and you would see them, on television. As a kid, I would watch the news and like so and so, and oh, the Gambino crime family. Oh my goodness. They would go through all of these like news articles about so and this particular crime family, so it's something we would hear on the news, kind of sensationalized. But Goodfellas wrapped around that and kind of brought that out of the news onto the screen into these particular characters. And I think that's why, at least for our generation, why it's like, okay, the Godfather's cool. The Godfather's always going to be the GOAT. But Goodfellas brought those news stories to life, where we got to see what it was like true inner workings of a crime family set in that particular time period of time.
Absolutely, Lorena. You certainly struck the nail on the head with that because it is true. Where you and I grew up, you could actually see these individuals, these alleged individuals in the neighborhood. They didn't shy away from the camera. It was maybe a bold era for a lot of these organizations at the time. And, maybe
Mhm.
something that we had never seen before because, maybe there was spurred interest at the time in them for different reasons. But Goodfellas certainly pointed the arrow in the direction. And, there were a lot of things in the film that may have made it's based on a book, but there are a lot of things in the film that we could see similarly playing it out in real life during that time period. So it was very interesting to see this and also to realize all of these different characters that made up um,
Mhm.
some of these organizations that were quite complicated, had very complicated rules, and had constant power struggles. Oh my goodness gracious, within the organization itself. So you would see this kind of, who's on top right now and, who's running the show idea. And of course, Ray Liotta plays a character who's kind of pushed right into this in the middle of all this, something that had already existed, I think, for a long time. And so, as you said, his level of acceptance always came into question. And of course, that's a homage to the Godfather, where we kind of saw a character in The Godfather that had that situation also in front
Mhm.
of them, where somebody kind of confronts him and says, "Hey, what are you doing this? You're not Italian. What are you doing here? Why?"
Mhm.
So that was also very interesting. um, but yes, this was just an incredible production. And I don't know, since it was based on a book, that's one thing. But if it were not based on a book, and it's, let's say, Martin Scorsese decided to make this role, I think a lot of individuals who may relate to the role, not you or I, but
Mhm.
those individuals we were talking about would claim it's them, because I think they would be quite flattered by the notion that someone would make a film about them, so to speak. But I also think it's very interesting culturally because we've seen this. We've seen storefronts that are not actually a store, but you can go
Mhm.
in, but not everybody can go in the storefront. Uh,
Right.
Private club, all of these unusual places, especially in Queens, in certain areas of Queens, and as you said, in certain areas of Philadelphia, where you and I
Mhm.
have seen these things kind of play out on the streets. And and it almost was, you're right about the attention. The newspapers just, it was like a tabloid run on these guys. It was tabloids. It was maybe a
Holy.
different era of let's say alleged crime, that we've never seen before, except for maybe 1930s, where
Yeah.
people would kind of have Tommy guns and uh, all sorts of, what's the guy? The one who Al Capone, not since
Mhm.
Al Capone had there been such a publicized way of seeing these individuals on television practically every day, Lorena. The newspapers, when print was important, the newspapers
Mhm.
just had them in there. And it was a lot. It was a lot of coverage they got. So you knew what these people looked like. You knew what they looked like, where they were. It was a very interesting time. I don't know whether we'll see a time like that again.
I don't think so either. It was just like so bold, so brash. You had the crime bosses, yeah, no comment, no comment. And then you had the lawyer. That's what cracked me up. Like, I really don't appreciate these allegations made against my client. And that's where the trope of, the mob sends their lawyer, hey, you need to get me off of that. I think it just did. This is the movie that I tell people, this is if it wasn't, I want to say, if it wasn't for this film, The Sopranos would not have been as big as big as they were. And Ray Liotta's character in this film, you see him progress, and this is to kind of get to the toxic male thing. You see him progress from someone who, of course, is, yeah, he's selfish. He wants to do good for his mother. He wants to, and he goes about it the only way that he knows how to do it, even though she doesn't approve of it. But he, because I think he said either his father left or his father was an alcoholic or something like that. And he was basically the man of the house, and he felt that
Right.
he had to take care of his mother. And I guess when he started working for the Bob and he got that card, she's like, "Where'd you get that card from?" He's like, "Don't worry about it, Mom. Taking care of you. I'm taking care of you." And it's hard to be mad at him because you can
Mhm.
tell she wants to be so mad at him, but he's just like, I want to protect my mother. I want to provide for my mother. She may not approve of it, but I did this. I accomplished this. And as you go through the film, he falls in love with Lorraine Bracco's character. They have children, and she pretty much is just like, look, you can't, because I think she had to take her kids to visit him in prison.
Yeah,
Oh,
that must have been so incredibly hard for her.
that was hard. She was like, "Nobody will talk to me. I'm out here on my own." And you can tell he's just so disappointed. He's just like, he just feels like he's not a man to be able to take care of his family from behind bars.
And it's good that she told him that because it prepared him for what was to come. Because he realized, I think, what that meant, since no one was talking to her.
Right.
Essentially, when you're shunned, it's not a good thing when no one's standing by you in a situation like
Mm-mm.
this. And of course, Lorraine Bracco went on to star in The Sopranos, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Big hit. Based, I guess, in the 80s or 90s, more like it.
Yeah, more like 90s. Yeah.
And that was a huge hit for Lorraine Bracco in the series there. I think she played a psychiatrist or something.
Yeah, she was a psychiatrist. It was just like a mob boss who goes to see a shrink.
Yeah, we're laughing about it now because it is very funny. It's just so amazing. Another thing too was that it did win a lot of awards, the film. It was nominated for, I think, Best Academy Award. It didn't win that. But Joe Pesci ended up winning for Best Supporting Actor. And I think he did deserve that award.
Oh, he did. He did.
Yeah. And also at the Golden Globes, I'm sorry, at the BAFTAs, it won for Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Director, Best Film, Best Costume Design, Best Editing, pretty much sweeping a lot of the BAFTAs, as well as being nominated for a bunch of other awards. It did very well in Venice as well when it premiered there as well. So it, regardless of who won which award for the movie, it's
Mhm.
a completely iconic snapshot of, and I'm going to say Queens or New York, wherever in New York you guys say it's Queens, um,
Mhm.
around the corner, of a life that happened, this lifestyle of this family, and their involvement with essentially organized crime that is
Mhm.
unforgettable. Um, and really did have a huge impact on film and television going forward. People tried to capture that magic again, Lorena.
Yeah, they really did. And it's interesting. We're actually going to come back to the Sopranos in a little bit. He looks so young in this, Ray
Yeah,
Liotta.
he looks like a child.
He was so young in this, but it fit the part because he had to seem like the fresh-faced, I'm just dazzled that this family would want me, and how they treat me, and how pissed off Joe Pesci was. I'm supposed to be getting made. Although the joke about Goodfellas is if you bleeped out every curse word, you probably only have 5 minutes of footage from the movie. Oh my goodness. But yes, he definitely. Goodfellas is the movie that Ray Liotta is most well known for. However, did you know that he was in Field of Dreams?
Yes, I did. So, Lorena, at this time, I worked at a movie theater in 1989. I was a movie theater employee. I was a cashier at a movie theater, and I went to see Field of Dreams and Dances with Wolves at the same, pretty much around the same time, as at the theater at the same time.
Hmm.
And I took all my friends. We were in Manhattan, and we went to see Field of Dreams. And he plays, I think it's Shoeless Joe Jackson, who, was kind of a controversial figure in baseball because he, along with a bunch of other, I believe it's this character, he, along with a bunch of other characters in the story, were accused of throwing the World Series.
Hmm.
And at that time, it's like pretty much, they couldn't even get a job anywhere. I mean, it like ruined their career saying that somebody would do something like that.
Hmm.
So at least I believe that's the case. I could be wrong, Lorena. Am I wrong?
I don't think so.
Okay. But it was amazing to see this because Field of Dreams is, a baseball superfan film where, Kevin Costner, who plays a farmer, he's going to
Hmm.
lose the farm. He's going to lose the farm. And this was quite reflective of the 1970s and 80s with all these farm issues, with people losing their farms, losing their properties.
Yes, that's very true. Remember the Farm Aid? It
Yeah.
was it was a real crisis.
It was huge. And now all of a sudden, Kevin Costner goes out to his field. And I'm not even quite sure how it happened because I can't remember all the details. But what I do remember is these words that said, "If you build it, he will come." And of course, what he was actually wishing for, yes, the whole team showed up. But what he was wishing for was to see his father again. It was this kind of like longing to see his father. It's not
Mhm.
Shoeless Joe Jackson. His father's not Shoeless Joe Jackson. His father is another baseball player. But it was just this desire or this need to see his father again for him to kind of go on and go through this crisis. And everybody, like the whole community, is angry at Kevin Costner for mowing down his cornfields and putting up a huge baseball thing. And they're like, "What are you doing? What's wrong?" Like it was so good to see people like the people, because they're like so sensible. "What are you doing? Don't you realize how bad that is that you mowed down your corn and put up a baseball thing?" I can't even look at you. Like it was very funny to see Americans at that time kind of respond, his
Mhm.
neighbors who were farmers see that. And then of course, James Earl Jones is also in this film. And he talks about Shoeless Joe Jackson and the
Mhm.
history of baseball and the rich history of it. And, I think it was maybe at a very golden time for baseball anyway, because it was before there were a lot of $1 million salaries. People weren't making that much in baseball at that time. And you could still go to a baseball game for $7 to get those nosebleed seats. It was very special. The idea that these players would show up in his field and that people would come to see them play, and thereby he could, and they would pay for that it would help them save their farm. I think it's just really just one of these wonderful, magical films during that era that we got. And you needed
Mhm.
somebody who could play up, like, what is someone from 1920 like? What is that like? Well, that's what Ray Liotta had to play, or the 1930s, or whatever era, or, kind of like these early baseball teams where, baseball was like the only thing in towns. Like, there was a baseball game and everybody went to this thing. So I think it was very interesting. Whoever thought of this had such an imagination, certainly loved baseball, a simpler time of it. And of course, the climax is one day he's out in the field and he does see his father, who was a baseball player. And he talks about how he'd never seen his father like this. He'd only seen him after the Depression or after things had worn him down. He never saw his
Mhm.
father as a young man. And so that was very interesting too. But it was certainly an introspective film, a Hail Mary to please save America's agricultural heritage here. And,
Mhm.
and it delivered that. And it did make you think these amazing things would be possible, where these players would show up. They were banned from baseball, I believe, after the incident happened. And being banned from baseball, like I said, that might have been the only job they could really do. So it could have been crushing, career wise
Yeah.
that time, especially if it was close to the Depression or near that time where there wasn't a lot out to, to get jobs in that regard. So it was such a lovely film. And then another thing I liked about it, Lorena, was that when the players kept showing up to the field to play, and of
Mhm.
course this is a fantasy film, they didn't really show up there, but this is a fantasy.
Right,
And they
right.
would kind of turn to Kevin Costner and say, "Is this heaven?" That's what they said, right? Do you remember this? They would kind of like show up and they go, "Is this heaven?" And I don't even remember what people said, but I thought that that was very interesting. Someone's perception of what heaven is this
Mhm.
time when they're happiest or being able to do things that made them incredibly happy. And in this
Mhm.
case, for many of these team players, it was heaven. It was almost like as if these guys were lost souls and they had no place to go. So it certainly wasn't an outside of the box thinking film. And it was done beautifully. So I loved this film when I saw it. It was really very amazing. It was an amazing film.
Yeah, my dad who did play baseball, he was just like all wrapped up in this movie. I was like, "Nah, I'll pass." It just wasn't at the time. It just wasn't at the time. It just wasn't for me. I was just more into watching the movie Major League than watching this
Yes,
one. But
great too.
in hindsight, yeah, you couldn't deny the cultural impact that this movie made. So the fact that this was the first one that Ray Liotta was in, then he shows up in a Scorsese film. If you appear in a Scorsese film, that is like a once in a lifetime type of experience. So for us to see him here, then he's in Goodfellas. Another movie that I saw him in that I really liked
Oh
was
yeah, I forgot he was
Karina,
in that.
Karina. Yes, I
I
remember
forgot.
this.
Oh my god, and of course, Whoopi Goldberg is kind of playing a nanny, to this young girl,
Mhm,
who's lost her mother. I can't remember why she lost her mom, but, Ray Liotta is the father, and, she has no one to turn to, this little girl, and of course, Whoopi Goldberg gives us a stellar performance here, but the father, this is 19 what is it, 60? And,
yeah,
you
like
know
1959.
1950.
Yeah.
And he can't the wrapping his whole head around the idea of what his daughter needs. I don't even know whether people even thought about that. Child services might come and say, well, we think the child might be placed. I think they might have said that. We think she should go to a place
Mhm,
that has a mother and father. I'm pretty sure they might have said that to him. And he's like, hell no, you're not taking my daughter. Screw you. But that was something that was commonly done at the time, right, Lorena?
mhm,
Where children would be placed, they would say, no, there has to be a mother and father, and this is what's best for the child. The best thing for you to do, sir, is to let her go to a family where there's a mother and father or get remarried.
mhm. Yes, and the latter was the one that was usually pushed, the hardest.
Yes.
I remember there were so many actors, like that actress you just saw with the red hair. I've seen her in so many things. She kills me. I think she was oh my gosh. Was she was in Two and a Half Men, the housekeeper, I
Yes.
think in Two and a Half Men. I
Right.
freaking loved her.
Oh
Oh my
gosh.
gosh, but I just remember her driving around in this, and this was such a wonderful, feel good movie. I haven't seen it in years, but when I did see it, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
It really is a special film. I think that these types of films about family and relationships are so important for us to see. And I often talk to you about showing how people interact with one another realistically and what actually happens. People want to see
Mhm,
that. They want to see these interactions. They want to see people getting along essentially. And, how do you live your life even after a loss like that? What happens in a
mhm.
realistic manner? There was that shot where you showed, or at least they had. Oh, it's
That's
so
funny.
sweet. It's so sweet seeing this type of situation. And of course, importantly, it did show the interaction of blacks and whites at that time, that
Mhm,
they were in each other's lives. They weren't just kind of like, well, good morning, I'll see you later. A lot of times there was this very meaningful relationship between, these different groups. So that is also kind of shown so wonderfully in this film.
mhm. It's such a great film. Love Ray Liotta's performance, of course. Love Whoopi Goldberg's performance, and again, you have another, male character who's very protective, wants the best, you know, for uh for his daughter, but he's also grieving the loss of the love of his life. So it's such a touching movie to see.
Absolutely.
Definitely check that out. So the next movie actually that I saw Ray Liotta in was one called Don't Judge Me.
The jungles of Vietnam.
Well, this is going back a little bit. I'd forgotten about this one too. And is this right up there with what's the other one that Robert Downey Jr. is in? Um,
Tropic Thunder.
yeah, is this on that same vein, Lorena?
In a way, yes, with just how zany things things are. Just kind of like that, just zany, crazy military kind of film in a way, except for in Tropic Thunder, they were filming it. It was, wasn't real until it turned out to be until it turned out to be real. Yeah, it was just one. This was like pictured during the Vietnam War. Now, if I remember correctly, I think this movie came out, I want to say like what, maybe 15 years after the Vietnam War ended or something like that. So
Hmm.
I kind of had that aesthetic going, that whole thing going for it as well. So this is again set during the Vietnam War era. So even though it was a wartime atmosphere, it was more like levity, kind of like MASH, kind of like Hogan's Heroes,
Yes,
pretty
yes.
much like that. And you have Dennis Leary, who's nuts. I love him. Ray Liotta and Danny Glover. This was a Disney film back when Disney was actually doing pretty good funny films. Like Dougie Doug is in it. Corin Nemec from Parker Lewis Can't Lose was in it. I mean, it was remember back when Disney would put out movies like this
Yes.
that were just fun to watch. The plot, yeah, the plot's a little paper thin, but the performances are so good, and it's such a good feeling, to watch them.
Absolutely. We need more films like this.
We really do. We really do. I'm gonna actually show a couple pictures in a little bit. Hello, DK Greek 94 says, "Hail the Reina and Positive Fandom. Love the old mob movies. Yes, saw so many of them anyway. Here is a leg and a wing. LMAO."
Pass it on. I'll take one.
Yes, I surely will. Thank you. Yes, old mobster movies are just they're freaking amazing. But yeah, this film, I had so much fun watching it. Is that no, that's not who I thought. Din Then Lee. Okay, yeah. It was a really feel good movie. You can actually see this, I believe, on Disney Plus.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you should be able to see it on Disney Plus since it's a Disney film. I always say the Disney catalog up to like the 90s is like the bulk of really the best stuff to watch.
Mhm.
This is if you're looking for a really good family movie and you have Disney Plus, watch Operation Dumbo Drop. It's so funny.
And I'm sure that
Gotta
was one of
laugh.
those films they made where it just felt good to make this film.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We're gonna go drop an elephant in jungles in Vietnam. Who's with me? What? And the elephant is a big part of
Yeah.
the movie. So you kind of have that going on. Hence Operation Dumbo Drop. There you go. There you go. There you go.
Definitely worth a rewatch.
Yes, definitely worth a rewatch. Again, a very positive depiction of our military during a
Absolutely.
very touchy and unpopular war. But to see how these men back each other up, to see how they're going out of their way to help this village full of people that they do not know, and how Ray Liotta's character befriends this young Vietnamese boy. So it's very touching and fun to see, and full of great toxic male examples. So
Absolutely, Lorena. In fact, I'm gonna put it on my list of maybe things to watch this weekend because I could use a lift like this.
It is fun. I thoroughly enjoyed watching this movie when it came out. If anything, you see Danny Glover, I think is the officer in charge, and Dennis Leary. You know he's nuts. it's just it's just a great cast, a great cast. Well, how many times have we talked about some of these actors doing voiceovers for video games and we didn't know about it?
Yeah, a lot of times the reason why the video game's so good is because you do have an actor who is a fantastic voiceover actor, and you recognize the voice, and they just do such a great job. And it's much longer, much more comprehensive than a movie. These like video games, you check a lot of times it's 40 hours of gameplay, and they have to record stuff that maybe you don't even see in the film, but they have to do a lot of voiceover work for it.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, well, guess what he did voiceovers for? Grand Theft Auto Vice City.
I am not
Possibly my favorite installment of
not
this
surprised by
game.
this. Maybe the greatest game of all time, Grand Theft Auto, and certainly every iteration of Grand Theft Auto that came out got better and better and better. So this was a franchise where, it was wonderful, an adult franchise
Yes.
meant for adults
Mhm.
that kept delivering, and we haven't had anything like this since that time, um, except for maybe some of the other military games. But this is a little different. I kind of feel like this was like Miami Vice through the years.
Yes, it was. That's why this is my favorite one.
And I would love for them to remaster it. I'm sure they have, but I'd love for them to remaster it for now and just kind of enjoy Vice City and a lot of this really cool looking things that happen to, Grand Theft Auto 5, which is much later. But certainly it would be great to see them just remaster all this. I don't even think they need to make another game, just remaster some of this stuff so we can go back and relive these adventures. It certainly is fantastic to see what they've done. And what role did he? Oh, he was the main character.
Yeah, Ray Liotta. I don't know who William Fichtner is, but I know who Tom Sizemore is.
Yes,
That is
absolutely.
insane. So Ray Liotta was Tommy Vercetti.
Mhm,
Oh, wait a
mhm.
minute. Wait a minute. We got pictures. Oh my God, the tracksuit. I'm done. I'm so done. I,
Yeah.
oh man, the shirt.
Yes.
The shirt.
Agreed. I mean, there's so much in those games in a Grand Theft Auto game anyway. And of course, this particular game was made in 2002, and I think
Mhm,
the big one was made. Grand Theft Auto 5 was made in I think 2010 or something like that. But they were pushing the limits in what could be done in a game, and the environments looked really good for that time.
mhm.
And certainly everybody was playing Grand Theft Auto, and they're waiting for the next one and the next one.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll ever make another one, but like I said, all they have to do is remaster it. It'll be introduced to a whole new generation of players who will absolutely
Mhm.
love this game. Yeah, that's very impressive that he got a role like that in such an impressive game.
And it makes total sense given that he was in Goodfellas, that he was put in Vice City.
Yeah, I agree. I think it does make sense in that regard, and he understood what would be required from the role.
Mhm,
And there's so much freedom in a game like this, in the sense of where your character what you're not necessarily what your character is doing, but where they're going. So a lot of what their voiceovers, what they end up doing is recording each scene. They might have to record 5 or 6 different things for each scene. So
mhm.
it's a lot of work to do all that. And I've seen things where they're like in the studio all day long and they just recorded one scene. So it's a lot. It is a lot of work. And we need good actors who can do this sort of stuff.
Oh
It
god,
can't be
yeah.
somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. You won't end up with a good video game. So those voiceovers are as important as the graphics sometimes.
Oh, sorry, this is bringing back memories. I mean, I've seen characters like this in Miami.
Yes.
That's why
Yes.
I said, soon as I saw the advertiser for Vice City, I'm like, oh man, shut up and take my money. I have to go and get this.
Oh, I
BK
didn't know he was in there.
94 says, fun fact, Ray Liotta appeared in a Call of Duty Zombies map called
I
Alcatraz.
had no idea.
I didn't know either.
Wow,
I
that's
had
interesting.
no idea. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
good to know. I didn't know that. But that also does not surprise me.
Let's see. So, speaking of gangsters, we're going to hop to the next movie that he was, well, we won't say movie, we'll say miniseries. And it makes total sense. And I'm mad I haven't seen it yet. And that would be The Many Saints of
Yeah.
Newark.
I haven't seen it either, but it would be interesting to see him in this. This might have been what, second to his last appearance, Lorena?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. This
You
came
know.
out in 2021.
Mhm.
And I heard that it was pretty okay. I just think for me, after I saw The Sopranos, I was kind of done.
Yeah, yeah. I I just love the clothes. It's Vera Farmiga who plays his mother,
Mhm.
and I do love her prosthetic and makeup there. His bell bottoms um, from that era, which that's what people wore.
That's what
Um,
they were.
it's so fantastic seeing what he had to deal with and how tough it was. Gee, it was tough. From what we can see, none of this stuff was easy. I don't know how this kid made it through. So they certainly did a good job of showing us this situation. And I love these 70s era
Mhm.
movies or TV shows where you see all that good stuff that we don't have anymore, like those giant cars and the TVs and the really cool clothes and the incredible music with the Victrollers and all that sort of stuff. So
Mhm.
I loved seeing this being recreated. It looks so good. And I've never watched it either. I also like John Bernthal, who we just saw a few seconds ago, who's in it. He's
Mhm.
one of my favorite actors there. So yeah, it looks like it would be very interesting. I didn't know he was in this. I didn't know.
Hmm.
Yeah, I didn't know he was in this. Yeah. So does it say what role he plays?
Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see. He is Hollywood Dick Moltisanti, which
Uh-huh.
I think is his. He said was his uncle.
What?
Yeah, his Uncle Dickie.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Talk about perfect casting.
Yeah.
Talk about perfect freaking casting.
Yeah,
Billy
absolutely.
and
So
Paulie
maybe one of these days.
Mormutz.
And Michael Imperioli, who also is huge in these types of films,
Yeah.
we've seen, is in that. And it says it's Michael Gandolfini, who is James Gandolfini's son, correct, Lorena?
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes,
And
he
so
is.
many of you know, unfortunately, James Gandolfini passed away.
hmm
Actually, it was pretty recent as well, right?
It was. It was very recent.
And so his son is playing reprises the role of a younger version of the Tony character. So
hmm
there is that. I like this guy, Alexandro Nivola. Um,
hmm
yeah, he's is he the same character as the one that Ray Liotta is playing, or is it a different?
I think so. I think so. I
Okay.
think he's the younger version. Yeah, Dickie Moltisanti. And
Oh,
yeah.
Sal Montesani.
Oh, okay.
It's a different gentleman, but
Okay.
it still is fantastic to see these characters here.
Wow, hold on. Oh, is he in jail? Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Ah, there
How
he
many
is.
you know what? This just I have to stop here for a minute because I think there was like this rash of like interviews where they would go and interview mobsters in prison. And and we would sit and watch it because we were just fascinated. I'm like, yeah, I killed that guy. I might have killed that guy. I don't remember. I can't say for sure. They're just like,
um,
dang, they're just putting it out there.
it was you're right, it was these huge television interviews and people were watching this stuff, and it was quite documented. Some of these individuals went into witness protection, and
Mm-hmm.
they didn't look the way they did before, but everybody knew who they were anyway. And um it's like, of course you remember, I can't remember the movie, where I guess it's Steve Martin plays. Maybe it's not Steve Martin, but one guy plays a former an alleged former organized crime person who has to relocate to the middle of like nowhere in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that was a comedy, but of course, it was happening in real life.
Oh yeah.
It was like very, very funny to see these, comedies about it. But yeah, you're right. There were all these interviews, and oftentimes they'd be incarcerated, and you could tell because of what they were wearing. They were not allowed to put on regular clothes during the interview, so they had to wear, this prison
Mm-hmm.
attire. So you would look at them, and you're like, wait a minute, he's wearing a jumpsuit. Oh, he's in prison. Of course, he agreed to do the interviews. Anything to get the hell out of the cell for a few
I
minutes.
know. They would be out there. Yeah, you're the first person I'm telling this particular story to. Because the other part of the fascination with these mobsters were even when they were in prison, they were still allegedly conducting business.
Yes,
It's
and
just like it didn't stop.
absolutely, and that's why I was like, I have to say allegedly, because that's maybe where I learned this term.
Yeah, that's when I learned allegedly, It's like you can't say I didn't do that where you there no, so you don't really know. So you can just guess.
That's right. That's
I'm
right.
like, okay, allegedly. But it was just fascinating. I mean, especially like me, it's like the criminal. I think if I had to no, I'd still be an engineer. But FBI profilers, they have this I love their job. They have such a cool job. The criminal mind just fascinates me. And just when you sit and listen to these guys and they're kind of dumb for ending up in prison, but when you hear them and they talk about everything that they put together and just how interconnected stuff is, it's like, man, it's a lot of stuff. So I am actually gonna have to go back and watch the many Saints of Newark because I kind of skipped that. I'm like, I'm not really interested in a Soprano sequel. So I don't know how it did, but very cool that Ray Liotta was in it.
Yeah, it is. And I think that they were kind of paying homage to a lot. Let's say the forthcoming film, I guess, if, since it would be in the future, the
Hmm.
Goodfellas just down the road. Well, okay, it's not down the road, but one state over.
Yeah.
One state over. So there is that. But yeah, it is very interesting. I'd like to see the scene that he's in the film. I think it would be very interesting to see that.
Mhm. So we'll go from this one to, unfortunately, the last movie that Ray Liotta completed, which is the one I am the most fascinated with. And that would be, of course, Cocaine Bear.
Yeah, Lorena, I just can't say enough about this film. Maybe it's on the level, or kind of God, this poor bear. He it's based on a story of a man who parachuted out of a out of a plane, and he had cocaine on a backpack. He died, a bear got to the cocaine, and
Hmm.
this is in the 80s, and of course
Yes.
we were saying cocaine in the 80s is synonymous.
Hmm.
It feels very 1980s, from the wall phones to the idea of a bear getting I don't know how many kilos of cocaine. This poor character. I can't wait to see it.
I can't. I'm just like, it's so crazy that it's just like what part is true and which part, of it isn't true. It's the stories that are just so crazy that it's just like, is that really, no, it's not, it's like, is that really what it's going to be, what it's going to be like?
Yeah, and you have this up about Elizabeth Banks, and she talks about how she pretty much did a lot to try and bring this film to the screen, how hard she worked on this film. Honestly, Lorena, this is this is the type of film we need every once in a while, just to kind of think outside of the box.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that it would be very interesting if he was recognized for this film, which I think he might be. But honestly, it's just so amazing that they're bringing this to us as entertainment. We like to see unusual things like this. I have no idea how they did those effects that we just saw. It looks like a real bear.
Yeah, it's a CGI bear,
Okay.
and Elizabeth talks about like the challenges of doing that, like the actor that they kind of had, to use for reference, had to walk like a bear and all of that. But yeah, yeah, the bear is CGI.
Well,
The
it
bear
looks real.
It looks very, very real. This movie looks as outrageously crazy as I want to say, like The Hangover. No one expected that movie to to show up. It was just crazy from beginning to end. And this is what Cocaine Bear looks like it's gonna be. It just looks like it's gonna be completely nuts.
Yeah, it is just it's going to be a crazy fun ride. So many people are excited about it. I haven't heard anybody say that this is not something they're interested in seeing. We all want to see what happens with this, but it is unfortunate that this was his last film that he made.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a it's such a it's such a shame. I thought I had a picture of it. Well, no, this is actually the premiere. Oh, we're in pasties. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I won't stay on that one too long, so that's a big me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was his last film. I believe he plays um why am I losing my stuff here? Okay.
Yeah, maybe it refreshes, after a certain amount of time and
Yeah. Yeah. So he's Sid. He's Sid. Oh my gosh.
he looks like a video game character there.
He really does. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be hilarious seeing
Mhm.
seeing him in this film. Even though it's his last film, and it's kind of like why I'm so glad that we have this medium to like capture performances of actors, especially as they progress in their careers. It's just nice memento to have. And the fact that his last movie is probably one of the craziest movies he's been in, I cannot wait for this.
Yeah, this is gonna be amazing, and you and I were both talking about going to see it today. We're so eager to see it. Of course, time is not allowing either of us to do that,
Mm-mm,
but,
no.
I'm as eager as you are to go and see this film, Lorena.
Oh gosh, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Gonna be great. Cannot wait to see it. So folks, yeah, we're gonna wrap this one up. Of course, Ray Liotta, definitely with his roles an icon of toxic masculinity. Love the roles that he's played, unapologetically masculine, and roles from where he's very serious to roles where he's not so serious. It's amazing. He even after I want to say after Goodfellas, he wasn't like super high tier, but he was always around and always in roles, and that's a blessing in Hollywood to be able to work as long as he has.
Yeah, definitely, and he remained relevant. Everybody recognized him and his work. So that was also something that was very important, that not only was he recognizable as an actor, but everybody remembered Goodfellas,
Mm-hmm.
and also Field of Dreams, I think. He was just so well known for those two films that no one would ever forget his contributions, you know, in the performing arts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, folks. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Toxic Male Appreciation. Please do subscribe to Her of Positive Fandom. Please do subscribe to me, Reina Creole, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.